Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. More valuable than money. More valuable than talent. More valuable than time itself. Because wherever your attention goes, your life follows. Every distraction steals a piece of your future. Every unnecessary notification, every endless scroll, every moment of mindless consumption quietly reshapes who you become. The world is competing for your focus because your focus creates your destiny. This audiobook is not about productivity hacks. It's about reclaiming ownership of your mind. Because if you don't control your attention, someone else always will. Chapter 1. Attention is your life. Most people believe their life is shaped by talent, by luck, by opportunity, by the people they know or the money they have. But those are not the foundations of a meaningful life. They are simply tools. The real foundation is something far more basic, far more powerful, and far more overlooked. Your attention. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy flows, your actions repeat. And your repeated actions become your identity. That is why attention is not just another resource. It is the resource. Everything else begins there. Attention creates reality. Remember those words because they are the foundation of everything you are about to learn. Think about sunlight. A gardener doesn't force a plant to grow. The gardener simply makes sure the plant receives enough sunlight, enough water, and enough care. Whatever receives consistent sunlight grows stronger. Whatever remains in darkness slowly withers away. Your attention works exactly the same way. Give your attention to learning, and knowledge grows. Give your attention to fear, and anxiety grows. Give your attention to your health, and your body becomes stronger. Give your attention to endless entertainment, and distraction becomes your identity. Whatever receives your attention grows. Attention creates reality. That's the key. This means your future isn't determined by what you occasionally do. It's determined by what repeatedly captures your attention. Many people spend years asking the wrong question. How can I become more successful? A better question is this: what currently owns my attention? Because the answer to that question explains almost everything about your life. If your mornings begin with social media instead of intention, someone else owns your attention. If every notification immediately pulls you away from meaningful work, someone else owns your attention. If your thoughts are constantly occupied by comparison, resentment, or drama, someone else owns your attention. You may think you're making choices. Often, you're simply reacting. And there is a massive difference between living intentionally and living reactively. You have a choice. Every hour, every minute, every moment. You have a choice. Most people never realize how expensive distraction truly is because distraction rarely feels dangerous. It feels harmless. It feels small. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, one quick video, one more notification, one more message, one more scroll. Nothing seems serious, but life isn't changed by one decision. Life is changed by thousands of repeated decisions. A single drop of water seems insignificant, yet over enough time, water can carve through solid stone. Distraction works the same way. One interruption isn't the problem. Thousands of interruptions become a different life. Imagine someone who checks their phone every 10 minutes throughout the day. They don't notice anything dramatic happening. Their career doesn't collapse overnight. Their relationships don't disappear in a week. Their dreams don't vanish instantly. Instead, something much more dangerous happens. Their ability to focus slowly weakens. Their patience becomes shorter. Their creativity becomes shallower. Deep thinking becomes uncomfortable. Silence becomes unbearable. Eventually, they begin believing this scattered state is simply who they are. It isn't. It's what they practiced. That's the key. You become whatever you repeatedly pay attention to. Attention creates reality. Consider two people with exactly the same intelligence. The first spends 2 focused hours every day learning valuable skills, reading meaningful books, solving difficult problems, and improving one small area of life. The second spends those same 2 hours bouncing between notifications, videos, arguments, headlines, and endless entertainment. 5 years later, they appear completely different. Different income, different confidence, different conversations, different opportunities, different futures. What changed? Not intelligence, not talent. Attention. Because attention creates direction, and direction eventually creates destiny. Many people believe they need more motivation. They don't. They need fewer distractions. It's not about motivation. It's about attention. It's not about trying harder. It's about protecting better. That's the difference. That's the key. Here's something the modern world rarely tells you. Every company wants your attention because attention has become one of the most valuable currencies on Earth. Entire industries compete for seconds of your focus. Algorithms study your habits. Applications are designed to keep you scrolling. Notifications are engineered to interrupt you. The longer you stay distracted, the more valuable you become. To someone else, but not to yourself. You have a choice. You can continue allowing your attention to be rented by strangers, or you can reclaim ownership of your own mind. You don't need their permission. You simply need awareness. The moment you become aware of where your attention goes, you regain power, because you cannot change what you refuse to notice. Start paying attention to your attention. Notice what captures you. Notice what drains you. Notice what energizes you. Notice what leaves you feeling empty. Every observation is a step toward freedom. Every intentional decision strengthens your ability to focus again. Remember, your mind is like a garden. If you don't choose what grows there, weeds will grow by themselves. Distraction is the weed. Focus is the cultivation. You have a choice. Now, let's talk about identity. Many people say, "I'm just not a focused person." That statement becomes dangerous because identity drives behavior. If you believe you're naturally distracted, you'll continue acting distracted. Instead, begin saying something different. I protect my attention. I decide where my focus goes. My attention belongs to me. These aren't empty affirmations. They're instructions for your brain. Identity shapes action. Action shapes habit. Habit shapes destiny. That's the key. This audiobook is not asking you to become a productivity machine. It is asking you to become the guardian of your own attention. There is a difference. Productivity is about doing more. Attention is about choosing better. Protect attention before protecting productivity. Because productivity without attention becomes busyness. Busyness without intention becomes exhaustion. Exhaustion without purpose becomes regret. Everything begins with attention. Own your mind before chasing success, because success without ownership is fragile. When you own your attention, you own your decisions. When you own your decisions, you own your habits. When you own your habits, you begin shaping your future deliberately instead of accidentally. Never forget the central truth of this chapter. Attention creates reality. Not occasionally. Always. Every conversation. Every habit. Every relationship. Every dream. Every achievement. Everything grows where your attention repeatedly rests. So ask yourself one final question before moving forward. If someone watched where your attention goes every single day, could they accurately predict the future you're creating? The answer is probably yes. That should challenge you. It should also encourage you. Because if attention creates reality, then changing your attention changes your reality. Your future does not begin someday. It begins with your very next decision about where your mind will rest. Your attention is your future. Hold on to that truth as we continue, because understanding the value of attention is only the beginning. The next challenge is recognizing what has been stealing it from you all along. Chapter 2. Every distraction has a hidden cost. Most people think distraction costs time. It doesn't. Time is only the surface. The real cost is much deeper. Distraction destroys momentum. It weakens clarity. It interrupts progress. It slowly teaches your brain that sustained focus is no longer necessary. And once that lesson becomes a habit, every important part of your life begins to suffer. That is why you must stop asking, "How many minutes did I lose?" Instead, ask a better question. What did this interruption cost me that I cannot measure? Because the truth is simple. The cost is always bigger than it appears. Remember that sentence. You will hear it again and again because it changes the way you look at every distraction. Imagine pushing a heavy boulder uphill. The first few steps require enormous effort. Your muscles strain. Your breathing changes. Your entire body commits to moving forward. But after several minutes, something happens. Your body finds a rhythm. Every additional step becomes easier because momentum has taken over. Now imagine stopping every 30 seconds. You lose that rhythm. Every restart demands another burst of effort. Your work becomes harder than it should be. Your brain works the same way. Beginning is expensive. Continuing is efficient. Every interruption forces you to begin again. That's the hidden cost. People often believe they can switch between tasks effortlessly. They proudly say, "I'm good at multitasking." The brain disagrees. Your mind was never designed to perform several demanding tasks at the same time. It simply jumps rapidly between them, paying a mental price every single time. Psychologists call part of this phenomenon attention residue. Imagine reading an important report. After 20 minutes, your phone vibrates. You answer a message. Then you return to the report. Have you really returned? Not completely. Part of your mind is still thinking about the conversation. Part of your attention remains attached to the interruption. Your body sits in front of the report, but your thoughts remain divided. That leftover mental clutter is attention residue. It is invisible, yet it quietly reduces the quality of your thinking. Now imagine repeating this process 20, 30, or 50 times every day. Your mind never becomes fully present anywhere. You aren't truly working. You aren't truly resting. You aren't truly listening. You're simply switching, again, and again, and again. The cost is always bigger than it appears. You have a choice. You can train your brain to stay with one thing, or you can train it to abandon everything. Those are the only two directions. There is no neutral. Think about the last time you sat down to accomplish something important. Perhaps you planned to write, to study, to build a business, to read a meaningful book. You begin. 5 minutes later, your phone lights up. Just one glance, then another notification appears. Someone sends an email. A headline catches your attention. You decide to check one message before returning to work. 30 minutes disappear. Nothing dramatic happened. Yet everything changed. Your concentration is gone. Your momentum has vanished. Your motivation feels weaker. You blame yourself. But the problem wasn't your discipline. The problem was the interruption. That's the key. People often criticize themselves for lacking motivation when what they really lack is uninterrupted attention. It's not about motivation. It's about protection. Protect your focus, and motivation lasts longer. Protect your attention, and momentum builds naturally. Look closely at how many interruptions have become normal. Checking your phone while waiting in line. Opening email every 5 minutes. Watching a short video during work. Responding instantly to every message. Scrolling before bed. Scrolling after waking up. Checking notifications during conversations. Opening social media without even realizing you did it. These actions feel insignificant because each one lasts only a few seconds or a few minutes. But life is not shaped by isolated moments. Life is shaped by repeated patterns. A single interruption means very little. Thousands create a different identity. Imagine checking your phone 100 times every day. Many people exceed that number without noticing. Each check lasts only 30 seconds. That sounds harmless. But 100 checks become 50 minutes. 50 minutes become 6 hours every week. 6 hours become more than 300 hours every year. 300 hours become thousands of hours over a decade. Thousands of hours. Enough time to master a language. Enough time to build a successful business. Enough time to earn a degree. Enough time to transform your health. Enough time to completely reinvent yourself. Instead, those hours disappeared one notification at a time. The cost is always bigger than it appears, and phones are only one example. Consider email. Many professionals leave their inbox open throughout the day. Every incoming message becomes an invitation to abandon deep thinking. Most emails aren't emergencies, yet they are treated like emergencies. The result? A day filled with constant beginnings and almost no meaningful endings. Nothing receives your complete attention. Everything receives fragments, and fragments rarely produce excellence. Then there are endless notifications. Your watch vibrates. Your computer makes a sound. Your phone flashes. A social media application demands attention. A news alert appears. A promotional offer arrives. Each one whispers the same message. Stop what matters and look at me. Most people obey without questioning. You don't have to. You have a choice. Remember this. Every notification is asking for permission. You decide whether to grant it. You don't need their permission to ignore it. That is real freedom. Some people spend years trying to optimize productivity systems while ignoring the obvious. The greatest productivity tool is often the delete button. Delete unnecessary applications. Delete unnecessary notifications. Delete unnecessary obligations. Eliminate before you optimize. That's the key. Now think beyond work. Distraction damages relationships too. How many conversations end because someone reaches for a phone? How many family dinners become silent because every person is staring at a screen? How many children remember looking at the top of a parent's head instead of into their eyes? Attention communicates value. When you give someone your full attention, you silently tell them, "You matter." When you divide your attention, you unintentionally communicate something else. This is why distraction costs more than productivity. It costs connection, presence, trust, memory, life itself. The moments that define your life are rarely long. A conversation, a sunset, a laugh with your child, a difficult discussion with someone you love. These moments ask for one thing: your complete attention. Nothing else. Every distraction steals something that can never be repeated. That should make you pause. Most people measure distraction in minutes. You must begin measuring it differently. Measure it in opportunities missed. Measure it in conversations never fully heard. Measure it in dreams left unfinished. Measure it in books never written. Businesses never started. Skills never mastered. Relationships never deepened. Measure distraction as lost life. Because that is what it truly is. A distracted hour is not simply 60 lost minutes. It is 60 minutes that could have become something meaningful. Every distraction demands payment. You always pay. The question is when. Sometimes you pay immediately. Your work suffers. Sometimes you pay years later. You look back wondering where your potential disappeared. The bill always arrives. The only uncertainty is its timing. Every distraction demands payment. You always pay. The question is when. Let those words become a filter for every decision you make. Before opening another unnecessary application, ask yourself, what is this really costing me? Before reacting to another notification, ask, is this worth my attention? Before allowing another interruption into your day, remember the truth you've learned in this chapter. The cost is always bigger than it appears. Protecting your attention is not about becoming rigid or disconnected from the world. It is about refusing to let small interruptions quietly dictate the direction of your life. Because every interruption you reject is another opportunity to build momentum. And momentum, once protected, becomes one of the greatest forces for transformation. You now understand that distraction always carries a hidden price. But there is an even deeper problem. Modern distractions don't just interrupt your work. They rewire your brain until constant stimulation feels normal. That is where we turn next. Chapter 3. Stop feeding your brain. Constant stimulation. Your brain was not designed to live in a constant state of stimulation. It was designed to pay attention to what matters. There is a difference. Today, many people wake up to notifications, eat while watching videos, work with music playing, switch between dozens of browser tabs, scroll through social media during breaks, watch television while checking their phones, and fall asleep with another video playing in the background. Silence has almost disappeared. Stillness has become uncomfortable. And many people never stop long enough to ask a simple question. What is all of this doing to my mind? The answer is profound. Every moment of constant stimulation trains your brain to expect more stimulation. The result is a mind that becomes impatient with anything slow, meaningful, or difficult. That is why this chapter is not about eliminating entertainment forever. It is about reclaiming control over what captures your mind. Because if you cannot enjoy silence, someone else will always profit from your noise. That's the key. Let's begin with something you've probably heard before. Dopamine. Many people talk about dopamine as though it were a bad thing. It isn't. Dopamine is not your enemy. It is one of the brain's natural messengers. It helps create motivation. It encourages learning. It rewards behaviors that help you survive and grow. Without dopamine, you wouldn't pursue goals. You wouldn't feel excitement. You wouldn't experience the satisfaction of accomplishing something meaningful. The problem isn't dopamine. The problem is how easily modern life manipulates it. Think about a slot machine. You pull the lever. Sometimes you win. Most of the time, you don't. But because the reward is unpredictable, your brain keeps hoping the next pull will be different. Social media works in a remarkably similar way. You refresh your feed. Perhaps you'll find something funny. Perhaps someone liked your post. Perhaps there's breaking news. Perhaps nothing happens at all. Your brain keeps checking because the next reward might be waiting. Notice the word. Might. That uncertainty is powerful. It keeps people returning over and over again. One more scroll, one more swipe, one more video, one more notification. Hours disappear without resistance. Not because you're weak, because your brain is responding exactly as it was designed to respond. The difference is that modern technology understands your brain almost as well as you do. Sometimes better. That's why you must become aware. Awareness creates freedom. Without awareness, habit becomes automatic. You have a choice. Every time you reach for your phone without thinking, ask yourself one question. Did I choose this, or did I simply react? That question alone begins to restore control. Now consider what constant stimulation teaches your mind. Imagine giving a child candy every 10 minutes. Eventually, ordinary food begins to taste boring. Nothing changed about the food. The expectation changed. Your brain works the same way. When every spare moment is filled with bright screens, rapid videos, loud music, endless scrolling, and constant novelty, ordinary life starts feeling dull. Reading becomes difficult. Studying feels exhausting. Meaningful conversations seem too slow. Deep work becomes frustrating. Not because these activities became worse, because your expectations changed. Your brain now expects constant excitement. Modern entertainment has quietly raised the minimum level of stimulation required to keep your attention. That's the hidden danger. The world becomes slower. Your mind becomes faster. The gap keeps growing. And eventually, you mistake restlessness for your personality. It isn't your personality. It's your conditioning. That's the key. Deep thinkers understand something that constant consumers never do. The quality of your thinking depends on the quality of your attention. Look throughout history. Great inventors, great philosophers, great scientists, great writers. They spent enormous amounts of time thinking, not consuming. Thinking. There is an important difference. Consumers fill every empty space. Thinkers protect empty space. Consumers react. Thinkers reflect. Consumers collect information. Thinkers transform information into wisdom. That transformation requires something modern life rarely provides: time, quiet, stillness. Imagine trying to see your reflection in water. If the surface is constantly moving, your reflection becomes distorted. Only still water reveals a clear image. Your mind is no different. When your thoughts are constantly interrupted by stimulation, clarity disappears. Only a quiet mind can think deeply. Only a quiet mind can solve difficult problems. Only a quiet mind can understand itself. That's why so many people mistake information for intelligence. They consume thousands of ideas, yet they rarely stop long enough to understand even one of them. Knowledge enters. Wisdom never forms. Because wisdom requires silence. Silence rebuilds attention. Remember that phrase. Silence rebuilds attention. Many people are terrified of boredom, not because boredom is dangerous, because they haven't experienced it in years. The moment they stand in line, they reach for their phone. Waiting room? Phone? Elevator? Phone? 5 spare minutes? Phone. The brain never gets an opportunity to simply exist. Eventually, boredom begins to feel unbearable. But boredom wasn't always the enemy. In fact, boredom once served an important purpose. It pushed people toward creativity, toward imagination, toward problem-solving, toward observation. When children become bored, they invent games. When artists become bored, they create. When entrepreneurs become bored, they imagine solutions. When thinkers become bored, They ask better questions. Boredom is often the doorway to creativity. Constant stimulation closes that door before you ever walk through it. You have a choice. You can escape boredom every time it appears, or you can walk through it. On the other side, you'll often find your best ideas. Many of history's greatest breakthroughs were not born in noisy environments. They appeared during long walks, quiet mornings, moments of reflection, hours without interruption. Those moments are becoming increasingly rare, which means they are becoming increasingly valuable. Now let's become practical. Transformation does not happen through understanding alone. It happens through action. So what should you actually do? First, embrace silence. Not because silence is comfortable, because it is necessary. Spend 10 minutes each day without music, without podcasts, without videos, without your phone. Simply sit, walk, observe. Let your thoughts settle naturally. At first, your mind will resist. It will demand stimulation. It will search for distraction. That is normal. You're witnessing conditioning, not reality. Stay with the silence. Every minute strengthens your ability to focus. Silence rebuilds attention. Second, delay gratification. When you feel the urge to immediately check your phone, wait 5 minutes. When you want instant entertainment, postpone it. When you crave another quick distraction, pause. Not forever. Just long enough to remind yourself who is in control. This isn't punishment. It's training. Every delayed impulse strengthens self-command. Every resisted urge reminds your brain that you, not your habits, make the decisions. It's not about denying pleasure. It's about deciding when pleasure enters your life instead of allowing it to control you. You have a choice. Third, schedule boredom. That idea sounds strange in a world obsessed with staying busy, but intentional boredom is one of the greatest exercises for rebuilding attention. Take a walk without headphones. Sit outside without your phone. Drive without turning on the radio. Wait without reaching for a screen. Allow your brain to become unstimulated. The first few attempts may feel uncomfortable. Good. Growth often begins with discomfort. Soon you'll notice something remarkable. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions settle. Ideas begin appearing naturally. You remember things you forgot. Problems suddenly have solutions. Why? Because your brain finally has room to think. Silence rebuilds attention. This simple sentence carries enormous power. Not because silence magically changes your life, because silence removes everything preventing your mind from doing what it was designed to do. Think, reflect, create, understand. Most people spend their lives trying to add more information, more entertainment, more advice, more stimulation. Few people ask what they should remove. Yet subtraction is often more powerful than addition. Remove unnecessary noise. Remove endless scrolling. Remove automatic reactions. Remove constant entertainment. The space you create will soon be filled with something far more valuable. Clarity, peace, focus, direction. Never forget what you've learned in this chapter. Your restless mind is not a permanent condition. It is the result of repeated training. And just as it was trained toward distraction, it can be trained toward focus. One deliberate choice at a time. One quiet moment at a time. One resisted impulse at a time. Silence rebuilds attention. Hold on to that truth, because reclaiming your attention is not only about resisting stimulation, it is also about deciding what deserves your focus in the first place. That is exactly where we go next. Chapter 4. Eliminate what doesn't deserve your focus. Most people believe success comes from doing more. more projects, more meetings, more goals, more opportunities, more commitments, more information, more connections, more everything. But if you study the lives of extraordinary performers, you'll discover a very different pattern. They do not become successful because they keep adding. They become successful because they keep eliminating. That is one of the greatest misunderstandings about focus. Focus is not the ability to pay attention to everything. Focus is the courage to ignore almost everything. That's the key. Imagine a sculptor standing before a massive block of marble. The masterpiece is not created by adding stone. It is revealed by removing everything that doesn't belong. Your life works the same way. Your greatest potential is already there, but it is buried beneath unnecessary commitments, constant interruptions, meaningless obligations, digital noise, and endless distractions. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remove everything preventing you from becoming yourself. That requires one powerful skill: elimination. You have a choice. You can continue filling your life until there is no room left for what truly matters, or you can begin removing everything that weakens your attention. Because every unnecessary thing you carry steals energy from something important. Successful people understand a truth that most people ignore. Every decision has two parts: what you choose and what you refuse. Most people obsess over the first. Very few master the second. But saying no is often more valuable than saying yes, because every no protects your future. That's the key. So before we discuss what to eliminate, you must first discover where your attention is actually going. This is where the attention audit begins. Think of an accountant reviewing financial records. Every dollar must be tracked. Nothing is ignored. Why? Because money disappears wherever there is no awareness. Attention behaves exactly the same way. If you never examine where your attention goes, it will quietly disappear. An attention audit is simple. For one day, just one day, observe yourself honestly. Not with guilt, not with excuses, with curiosity. Write down every activity that captures your attention. How many times did you unlock your phone? How often did you check email? How many conversations left you energized? How many left you exhausted? How much time did you spend creating? How much time did you spend consuming? Do not judge yourself. Simply observe. Awareness always comes before transformation. That's the key. You may discover something surprising. The things draining your attention are often not dramatic. They're ordinary, small, familiar, automatic. And because they seem harmless, they've never been questioned. But small distractions repeated every day become enormous obstacles over time. One unnecessary habit, repeated for years, can quietly shape an entire life. The attention audit reveals those hidden patterns. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Now let's examine what deserves elimination. The first category is perhaps the hardest. Toxic relationships. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your attention. That statement may sound uncomfortable. Good. Truth often is. Some people constantly create drama. Some constantly complain. Some criticize every dream. Some only appear when they need something. Others leave you emotionally exhausted after every conversation. Notice something important. Their greatest cost isn't the conversation itself. It's the mental replay afterward. You think about what they said. You replay arguments. You imagine future conflicts. Hours disappear inside your own mind. The conversation ended. The distraction didn't. The cost is always bigger than it appears. Protecting your attention sometimes means limiting access to people who repeatedly steal your peace. You don't need their permission. You don't need to explain every boundary. You simply need the courage to protect your mind. It's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming intentional. That's the key. The second category is unnecessary commitments. Many people are exhausted not because life is difficult. They're exhausted because they agreed to too much. Every invitation, every favor, every committee, every volunteer project, every meeting, every obligation, each one sounds reasonable by itself. Together, they become overwhelming. Here's a question worth asking before saying yes. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Because every yes creates a hidden no. Say yes to another unnecessary meeting. You say no to deep work. Say yes to another meaningless obligation. You say no to your family. Say yes to another distraction. You say no to your future. Most people only hear the yes. Wise people hear both answers. Every yes creates a hidden no. Repeat that until it changes the way you make decisions, because it will. The third category is digital clutter. Look at your phone. How many applications compete for your attention? How many notifications interrupt your thinking? How many icons silently invite you into another hour of consumption? Most people organize their homes better than they organize the device they carry everywhere. Think about that. Your phone has become the front door to your mind. Would you leave your home's front door open for strangers to walk inside whenever they pleased? Of course not. Yet many people allow dozens of applications unrestricted access to their attention every hour of every day. Delete what you don't need. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Remove shortcuts to distraction. Unfollow accounts that add noise instead of value. Organize your digital environment so that focus becomes easier than distraction. Remember what we learned earlier. Environment shapes behavior. Make distraction difficult. Make focus obvious. That's the key. Then there is another thief of attention that disguises itself as responsibility. The endless news cycle. There is a difference between being informed and being constantly updated. One creates awareness. The other creates anxiety. News organizations understand something important. Urgency attracts attention. Fear holds attention. Outrage extends attention. That doesn't mean every news story is dishonest. It means your attention is constantly being pulled toward whatever feels immediate. Ask yourself honestly, how much of the information you consumed last week actually improved your life? How much helped you become wiser? How much made you a better parent, a better leader, a better friend, a healthier person? Very little. Most headlines disappear within days. But the stress they create remains much longer. You have a choice. Choose information deliberately. Don't allow information to choose you. Remember, your attention is limited. Every unnecessary headline occupies space that meaningful ideas could have filled. Every commitment consumes attention, not just time. Attention. That distinction matters. People often say, "I can spare an hour." Perhaps, but can you spare the emotional energy? Can you spare the recovery afterward? Can you spare the mental space it occupies for the rest of the day? Because attention continues working long after the calendar event ends. That is why every commitment deserves careful examination. Every commitment consumes attention. Every conversation consumes attention. Every project consumes attention. Every relationship consumes attention. Attention is your most valuable currency. Spend it intentionally. Imagine a medieval fortress, massive stone walls, strong gates, carefully guarded entrances. Not because the people inside feared everything, because they understood something valuable lived within those walls. Your attention deserves the same protection. Not everyone deserves immediate access. Not every notification deserves an answer. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every opportunity deserves acceptance. Protect your focus like a fortress. Guard every gate. Your eyes are a gate. Your ears are a gate. Your phone is a gate. Your schedule is a gate. Your conversations are gates. If you leave every gate open, don't be surprised when chaos enters. Protection is not paranoia. Protection is wisdom. You have a choice. Become the guard of your own fortress. Decide what enters. Decide what stays. Decide what leaves. No one else can do that for you. Many people spend years searching for the perfect productivity system. The greatest system often begins with subtraction. Less noise, less clutter, less drama, less urgency, less distraction, more clarity, more purpose, more presence, more meaningful work. That's the paradox. The more intentionally you eliminate, the more fully you can engage with what truly matters. Never confuse a full calendar with a meaningful life. Never confuse constant activity with real progress. Never confuse endless opportunities with the right opportunities, because your life is not defined by everything you do. It is defined by what consistently receives your best attention. Remember these truths. Every yes creates a hidden no. Every commitment consumes attention. Protect your focus like a fortress. Carry those principles into every decision you make, because eliminating what doesn't deserve your attention creates space for something far more powerful. Deep, uninterrupted work. And that is where your greatest results are waiting. Chapter 5. Train your brain to finish. One thing. The modern world celebrates starting. Start a new business. Start a new habit. Start another project. Start another course. Start another opportunity. Start, start, start. But the people who transform their lives are remembered for something very different. They finish. There is a quiet power in finishing what you begin. Not because every project is equally important, but because every finished task teaches your brain one simple lesson. I complete what I start. That lesson becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. That's the key. Most people don't realize that unfinished tasks continue living inside the mind, even after you walk away from them, even after you forget about them. They remain, like dozens of browser tabs left open on a computer. Each one consumes a little memory. Each one slows the system. Eventually, everything feels heavier. Your brain works the same way. Every unfinished promise, every incomplete project, every unread book, every abandoned goal, every postponed decision. Each one quietly asks the same question. When are you coming back? You may not consciously hear that question, but your mind does. Psychologists often describe this as the burden of open loops. An open loop is anything your brain considers unfinished. It doesn't have to be large. It could be responding to an email, cleaning a room, making an important phone call, writing the first chapter of a book, learning a language, finishing a business proposal. As long as it remains incomplete, your brain continues spending energy tracking it. Not constantly, but consistently. Imagine carrying 10 small backpacks. Each one is light, almost unnoticeable. But after walking for miles, the weight becomes exhausting. That's what unfinished tasks do. Each one feels insignificant. Together, they become overwhelming. That's why many people wake up feeling mentally tired before the day even begins. They aren't carrying today's work. They're carrying yesterday's unfinished work, and last week's, and last month's, and sometimes last year's. You have a choice. You can continue collecting unfinished tasks, or you can begin closing them, one by one. That's the key. Many people mistake busyness for productivity. They proudly say, "I've been busy all day." But being busy and making progress are not the same thing. Imagine digging 10 shallow holes. Now imagine digging one deep well. Which one eventually reaches water? The answer is obvious. Depth creates results. Scattered effort creates exhaustion. Yet most people spend their lives digging shallow holes. They begin one project, then another, then another. Each new idea feels exciting. You see, each unfinished project feels less interesting than the next shiny opportunity. Eventually, they have dozens of beginnings, very few endings. Their shelves are filled with books started but never finished. Their computers are filled with half-completed documents. Their dreams become collections of abandoned attempts, not because they lacked talent, because they never learned the discipline of completion. Completion builds confidence. Abandonment builds self-doubt. Every time you finish something difficult, your brain receives evidence. I can trust myself. Every time you repeatedly quit, another message is reinforced. I probably won't finish. Identity is built through repetition. That's why finishing matters so much. Let's talk about multitasking. It sounds efficient. It feels productive. It looks impressive. In reality, it often creates the opposite effect. Imagine trying to cook 5 complicated meals at exactly the same time. You constantly move between pots. Nothing burns. But nothing receives your full attention either. Everything takes longer. Everything becomes more stressful. Everything ends with lower quality. Your work behaves exactly the same way. You answer an email, switch to a report, respond to a message, return to the report, check your calendar, look at your phone, open another browser tab, return to the report again. By the time you're finally working, you've already exhausted your attention, not because the report was difficult, because your brain never settled into depth. Every switch carries a cost. Every interruption resets momentum. Every unfinished task competes for attention. Remember what we learned in the previous chapter. The cost is always bigger than it appears. Extraordinary performers understand something simple. They finish before switching. Watch elite athletes during practice. They don't constantly change exercises every 2 minutes. They complete the set. Then they move on. Watch great writers. Many protect several uninterrupted hours for writing before answering emails. Watch master craftsmen. They immerse themselves completely in one piece of work. Not because they're incapable of multitasking, because they understand the value of uninterrupted attention. They know that excellence requires depth, and depth requires staying. That's the key. There is a reason why masterpieces rarely emerge from scattered minds. Great work demands complete presence. Complete presence demands complete attention. Complete attention demands commitment. One task. Full attention. Complete it. Then move on. Repeat those words until they become automatic. One task. Full attention. Complete it. Then move on. This principle sounds simple. It is. Simple does not mean easy. Your mind has been trained for years to chase novelty. The moment work becomes slightly uncomfortable, another thought appears. Maybe I should check my phone. I'll answer this message quickly. I should look something up. I'll come back in a minute. Those thoughts are invitations, not commands. You have a choice. You do not have to follow every thought that enters your mind. That's real discipline. Not controlling your thoughts, controlling your actions. There is another hidden reward in finishing one thing. Momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. The hardest part of any meaningful work is rarely the middle. It's the beginning. Once momentum exists, progress accelerates. Every completed task builds confidence for the next one. Every finished chapter makes the next chapter easier. Every completed workout makes tomorrow's workout more likely. Success compounds. Completion creates momentum. Momentum creates consistency. Consistency creates transformation. Notice the order. Transformation is not built through occasional bursts of inspiration. It is built through repeated completion. Day after day, task after task, decision after decision. One task, full attention, complete it. Then move on. Many people spend their entire lives searching for motivation. They believe they need to feel inspired before taking action. But extraordinary performers reverse the process. They act first. Motivation follows progress. Not the other way around. Finishing something small often creates enough momentum to tackle something larger. That is why you should never underestimate small victories. Finish making your bed. Finish reading the chapter. Finish writing the page. Finish the workout. Finish the difficult conversation. Each completion becomes evidence that you are becoming someone who follows through, and that identity changes everything. Here's a practical exercise. At the beginning of every day, identify the single most important task. Not 3, not 10. 1. Ask yourself, if I complete only this one thing today, will the day still feel meaningful? Then protect that task with everything you've learned so far. Silence your notifications. Close unnecessary tabs. Remove distractions. Work until it is finished. Only then allow yourself to move to something else. This practice feels uncomfortable at first because your brain craves novelty. Stay with the discomfort. It is temporary. The rewards are permanent. It's not about doing everything. It's about finishing what matters. That's the key. Never forget this chapter's central principle. One task. Full attention. Complete it. Then move on. Again. One task. Full attention. Complete it. Then move on. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are rarely those who begin the most. They are the ones who finish the most. Every completed task strengthens your ability to focus. Every focused hour strengthens your identity. Every strengthened identity shapes your future. But even the strongest intentions can fail if your surroundings constantly encourage distraction. So after learning how to finish one thing, the next step is making focus easier than distraction. That begins with the place where you live, work, and think. Chapter 6. Build an environment that makes focus easy. Most people believe success is a matter of willpower. They tell themselves, tomorrow I'll be stronger. Tomorrow I'll have more discipline. Tomorrow I'll finally stop getting distracted. Then tomorrow arrives. Nothing changes. Not because they lack determination, because they are fighting the wrong battle. The strongest person in the world will eventually lose if they fight against temptation every minute of every day. That is why successful people rarely rely on willpower alone. They rely on design. They build environments that make the right choice easier than the wrong one. That's the key. Imagine placing a bowl of fresh fruit on your kitchen table. Now place a large box of candy beside it. Every time you walk past, your brain notices both options. Even if you choose the fruit, you still spent energy resisting the candy. Now imagine removing the candy entirely. Suddenly, no decision is necessary. The environment made the choice for you. Your attention works exactly the same way. Every distraction visible to your eyes creates another decision. Every decision consumes mental energy. Every bit of mental energy spent resisting temptation leaves less energy for meaningful work. That is why environment beats willpower. Not because willpower is useless, because willpower is limited. Environment works 24 hours a day. Willpower gets tired. Environment never does. You have a choice. You can build your day around constant resistance, or you can build your environment around automatic success. The second path is always easier, and it is almost always more effective. Most distractions begin long before the moment you notice them. They begin with the environment that surrounds you. Think carefully about what happens when you sit down to work. Your phone rests beside your keyboard. Several browser tabs are already open. Your email remains visible. Messages continue arriving. Television plays quietly in the background. Music competes with conversations. Your desk is covered with unfinished papers. None of these things seem significant individually. Together, they create an environment that constantly whispers, "Pay attention to something else." The distraction started before you made a single decision. That's why so many people believe they have weak discipline. They don't. They have poorly designed environments. That's the key. Imagine walking into two different rooms. The first room is quiet. The desk is clean. There is one notebook, one computer, one chair, no unnecessary objects, no notifications, no television, no visual clutter. The room silently communicates one message: work. Now imagine a second room. Phone buzzing, television playing, laundry piled nearby, open snacks, gaming console visible, multiple screens flashing, music competing with conversation. This room communicates something entirely different. React. Which environment requires more discipline? The answer is obvious. The room itself shapes behavior. Disciplined environments produce disciplined people. Not because the room possesses magic, because it removes unnecessary decisions. Every removed decision protects attention. That's the key. Let's begin with one of the simplest changes you can make. Your workspace. Look around where you work. What do you see? Papers from last week. Random objects. Old coffee cups. Unused cables. Sticky notes. Books you aren't reading. Every object competes for a small piece of your attention. You may think you ignore the clutter. Your brain doesn't. The brain constantly scans its surroundings. It notices unfinished business. It recognizes disorder. It processes visual information, whether you intend it to or not. That invisible processing consumes attention. Now imagine clearing your workspace. Leave only what is necessary for the task directly in front of you. Nothing else. Suddenly, your mind becomes quieter. Not because cleaning created focus, because cleaning removed distractions. The environment now supports the behavior you want. Remember this: a clean desk is not about appearance, it is about attention. Next, let's talk about your phone. The most distracting object in modern life is rarely the television. It fits inside your pocket. Many people believe they can ignore their phone simply because they aren't touching it. Research and everyday experience suggest something different. The mere presence of the phone can quietly pull at your attention, even face down, even silent, even across the desk. Your brain knows it is there. Part of your attention remains available for whatever might appear next: a message, a notification, a call, an update. The possibility alone becomes a distraction. You have a choice. Place your phone beside your work, or place it in another room. Notice the difference. When your phone requires standing up, walking across the room, and intentionally picking it up, distraction suddenly becomes inconvenient. That inconvenience is powerful. Do not underestimate small obstacles. Small obstacles prevent enormous amounts of unnecessary behavior. Successful people understand this principle. They don't make distractions impossible. They make them inconvenient. That's the key. Now think about notifications. Most people never question them. Every application asks for permission to interrupt your life. Most people immediately answer, yes, without thinking. But ask yourself something. Why should every application have immediate access to your mind? Why should every sale announcement interrupt your thinking? Why should every social media update compete with your goals? Why should someone else's priorities instantly become yours? They shouldn't. Turn off every notification that does not genuinely improve your life. Not later. Today. Leave only the essential. Everything else can wait. Remember, every notification is a request, not a command. You decide which requests deserve your attention. You don't need their permission to ignore them. That is freedom. Now let's discuss routines. Many people depend entirely on motivation. They wake up asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" That question often leads to inconsistency. Disciplined people ask a different question. What do I always do at this time? Notice the difference. One depends on emotion. The other depends on routine. Routine removes decision-making, and fewer decisions mean fewer opportunities for distraction. Imagine waking every morning. You drink water. You avoid your phone. You sit at the same desk. You begin your most important work immediately. Every day, eventually, your brain stops negotiating. It recognizes the pattern. This is what we do now. The habit becomes automatic. That is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Automatic excellence. Not because you became more motivated, because you removed the need to decide. Make distraction difficult. Make focus automatic. Repeat that sentence. Again. Make distraction difficult. Make focus automatic. Every successful routine follows this principle. Want to read more? Place the book on your pillow. Want to exercise consistently? Lay out your clothes the night before. Want to write every morning? Open the document before going to bed. Reduce friction. Increase visibility. Shape the environment before shaping behavior. That's the key. Many people try to fight distraction after it appears. That is already too late. The real victory happens earlier, before temptation arrives, before the notification appears, before the phone enters your hand, before the television turns on. Preparation is easier than resistance. Always remember that. Preparation is easier than resistance. Think about elite athletes. They don't wait until competition begins to prepare. Preparation happened long before the game. Champions organize everything in advance: equipment, nutrition, sleep, practice, schedules. Why? Because performance is easier when preparation is complete. Focus works exactly the same way. Prepare your environment. Then let your environment support your discipline. Disciplined environments produce disciplined people. This principle extends beyond your desk. Look at your home. Look at your calendar. Look at your digital life. Look at your friendships. Every environment influences behavior. Every room teaches habits. Every schedule teaches priorities. Every conversation shapes attention. Ask yourself honestly, does your environment encourage the person you want to become, or the person you're trying to leave behind? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's good. Awareness comes first. Change comes second. You have a choice. Change the environment. or continue expecting different results from the same surroundings. Only one path works. Never forget the central lesson of this chapter. Willpower is important. Environment is more powerful. Design your surroundings so success becomes the obvious choice. Design your routines so discipline becomes natural. Design your life so focus no longer depends on daily battles. Make distraction difficult. Make focus automatic. Those words are not merely advice, they are a blueprint for lasting change. Because when your environment consistently supports your best behavior, discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It begins feeling like your identity. And once focus becomes your identity, you're ready for the next level. Not simply avoiding distraction, but creating periods of work so deep that the outside world almost disappears. That is where extraordinary results are born. Chapter 7. Master Deep Work. Before the world interrupts you. There is a level of focus that most people rarely experience, a state where time seems to disappear. Distractions fade into the background. Your mind becomes completely absorbed in one meaningful task. Hours pass, yet they feel like minutes. This is not luck. It is not talent. It is not something reserved for geniuses. It is the result of uninterrupted attention. It is deep work. And in a world addicted to interruption, deep work has become one of the rarest competitive advantages you can develop. That's the key. Most people never produce their best work because they never remain with a task long enough to reach depth. They live on the surface, always responding, always checking, always switching. Imagine standing beside the ocean. The surface is noisy. Waves crash. Wind blows. Everything is constantly moving. But dive beneath the surface, and everything changes. The water becomes calm, clear, powerful. The same ocean, a completely different experience. Your mind works exactly the same way. The surface is filled with notifications, emails, messages, meetings, conversations, breaking news, endless demands. But beneath that noise is another level of thinking. A level where difficult problems become solvable, where creativity emerges, where meaningful ideas take shape, where extraordinary work is born. Most people never reach that level because they leave too soon. 5 minutes into difficult work, they check a message. 10 minutes later, they answer an email. 15 minutes later, they open another browser tab. They return to work believing nothing significant happened. Everything significant happened. Every interruption pulled them back to the surface. Deep work requires staying. That's the key. Think about lighting a fire. The first spark is fragile. A small breeze can extinguish it. But if you continue feeding the fire, eventually it becomes powerful enough to generate its own heat. Focus behaves the same way. The first 10 or 15 minutes are often the hardest. Your brain still remembers distractions. Random thoughts appear. You feel the urge to check your phone. You wonder whether someone sent a message. You think about something unrelated. Stay. Do not move. Remain with the work. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Your attention settles. The task becomes clearer. Momentum builds. Ideas begin connecting naturally. The work that seemed impossible 20 minutes ago suddenly becomes manageable. This is why interruption is so expensive. It doesn't merely pause progress, it forces you to restart the fire. Again, and again, and again. You have a choice. Remain long enough to reach depth, or remain trapped on the surface forever. Now consider the difference between average performers and extraordinary performers. Average performers spend much of their day reacting. Their inbox determines their priorities. Their notifications determine their attention. Other people's requests determine their schedule. They are constantly busy. Yet, surprisingly, little meaningful work gets completed. Their day belongs to whoever interrupts them first. Elite performers operate differently. They create before they react. They decide what matters before the world decides for them. They protect the hours when their mind is strongest. Only afterward do they answer messages. Only afterward do they attend meetings. Only afterward do they respond to requests. Notice the difference. One group lives in reaction. The other lives by intention. That's the key. Look at great writers. Very few begin their mornings by answering emails for 3 hours. Many wake early. Sit at the same desk. Right before the world becomes loud. They understand that creative energy is precious. Once it is scattered, it cannot simply be recovered. Consider successful entrepreneurs. The ones building remarkable companies rarely spend every minute responding to messages. They carve out uninterrupted time to think, to solve problems, to design systems, to make decisions that shape the future of their organizations. Because businesses are not transformed through constant reaction, they are transformed through clear thinking. Look at elite athletes. Champions do not interrupt every training session to check their phones. Imagine a sprinter stopping every few minutes to answer messages. Imagine a pianist interrupting every difficult piece to scroll through social media. Imagine a surgeon pausing an operation because of a notification. It sounds ridiculous. Yet many people treat their most important work with exactly that level of carelessness. They interrupt themselves constantly. Then wonder why excellence feels out of reach. Excellence demands continuity, not occasional effort. Continuous attention. Now think about inventors. The greatest breakthroughs in history rarely happened between interruptions. They emerged after long periods of uninterrupted concentration. Hours, sometimes days, sometimes years. The mind requires time to explore complex ideas. It cannot rush depth. That's why patience has become such a powerful advantage. Most people give up before the breakthrough arrives. They mistake temporary difficulty for permanent inability. But difficulty often means your mind is approaching something meaningful. Stay with it. That's where growth happens. Deep work is uncomfortable, not because something is wrong, because your brain has been trained to expect constant novelty. The first time you protect 2 uninterrupted hours, your mind will protest. It will search for distractions. It will invent reasons to stop. It will suddenly remember chores that seemed unimportant 5 minutes earlier. It will convince you to check your phone, just for a second. Recognize these thoughts. Smile at them. Then return to the work. You do not have to obey every impulse. That realization changes everything. You have a choice. Every moment of resistance strengthens your ability to remain focused the next time. Every completed deep work session rewires your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who gets distracted. You begin seeing yourself as someone who finishes difficult things. Identity follows action. Never forget that. Now let's talk about one of the most valuable hours of your day. The first hour. How you spend the first hour often determines the quality of everything that follows. If your morning begins with notifications, your brain immediately enters reaction mode. Someone else sets the agenda. Someone else controls your attention. Someone else owns the beginning of your day. But if your first hour belongs to your highest priority, everything changes. You begin with progress instead of noise, creation instead of consumption, purpose instead of reaction. That early victory creates momentum that carries into the rest of the day. Protect the first hour. Repeat those words. Protect the first hour. Because once that hour disappears, you rarely get another version of it. The day becomes louder. More demands appear. More decisions compete for attention. Your best mental energy is gone. Spend it wisely. Protect the deepest work. Your most valuable tasks deserve your strongest mind. Do not waste your highest energy answering questions that could wait until later. Do not spend your greatest focus organizing trivial details. Reserve your deepest attention for work that changes your future. Writing, building, learning, designing, solving, creating. Those are investments. Everything else is often maintenance. Know the difference. Protect the deepest work. Protect your future. These are not three separate ideas. They are one principle. The way you protect your first hour determines the quality of your deepest work. The quality of your deepest work determines the direction of your future. Everything is connected. That's the key. Imagine your attention as a priceless treasure. Would you hand it to the first stranger who knocked on your door? Of course not. Then why give it away to every notification, every headline, every unnecessary request? Your greatest work deserves better. You deserve better. Remember something important. Deep work is not measured by the number of hours you sit at a desk. It is measured by the quality of your presence. One deeply focused hour often accomplishes more than an entire distracted afternoon. Never confuse duration with depth. Depth is where transformation happens. Depth is where mastery develops. Depth is where your best ideas live. Most people will never experience this consistently because they refuse to protect it. You don't have to become most people. You have a choice. Build your mornings around creation. Build your schedule around focus. Build your identity around depth. Protect the first hour. Protect the deepest work. Protect your future. Carry these words into every morning. Let them become the filter through which you organize your day. Because once you master deep work, there is one final obstacle that continues stealing attention from countless people. Not technology, but the inability to say one simple word. No. That lesson may be even more important than everything you've learned so far. Chapter 8. Learn to say no without guilt. Many people believe their greatest distraction lives inside a phone. Sometimes it does. But for countless people, the biggest distraction has nothing to do with technology. It has a face, a name, a voice. It arrives as another favor, another invitation, another meeting, another request, another obligation, another opportunity you don't really want but feel unable to refuse. These distractions are far more dangerous than notifications because they often wear the disguise of kindness. You tell yourself, I don't want to disappoint them. They'll think I'm selfish. I should help. I'll only lose an hour. But that hour is rarely the true cost. The real cost is your attention, your energy, your peace, your momentum. No is protection. Remember that sentence, because until you understand it, your attention will always belong to someone else's priorities. That's the key. There is a strange belief that saying yes automatically makes someone generous. Not necessarily. Sometimes saying yes simply means you are afraid of saying no. There is a difference. Generosity comes from choice. People-pleasing comes from fear. One creates peace. The other creates resentment. Most people-pleasers never intend to become distracted. They simply want approval. They want harmony. They want everyone to be happy. So they agree. Again. And again. And again. Eventually, they wake up wondering why their own dreams never seem to move forward. The answer is painful. They spent years building everyone else's life. Very little time building their own. You have a choice. You can spend your attention earning temporary approval, or you can invest your attention creating a meaningful future. You cannot consistently do both. That's the key. People often misunderstand boundaries. They imagine walls, distance, coldness, isolation. Healthy boundaries are none of those things. Healthy boundaries simply answer one question: what deserves access to my attention? Notice the wording. Not everyone deserves unlimited access. Not every request deserves immediate acceptance. Not every conversation deserves your emotional energy. Boundaries do not exist because you dislike people. They exist because your attention is limited. Imagine owning a beautiful garden. You carefully water it every morning. You remove weeds. You nurture every plant. Now imagine leaving the gate open 24 hours a day. Anyone can enter. Anyone can take flowers. Anyone can trample the soil. How long before the garden disappears? Your attention is that garden. Boundaries are the gate. Without them, even good people can unintentionally damage what matters most. That's the key. Consider the modern workplace. Many meetings exist for one simple reason. No one questioned whether they were necessary. An hour is placed on everyone's calendar. 5 people attend. Only one person actually needs to be there. The remaining 4 quietly surrender an hour of focused work. One meeting, 5 hours of attention. Gone. Multiply that by weeks, months, years. The cost becomes enormous. Ask yourself before accepting another meeting, is my presence truly necessary? Not, will someone be disappointed if I decline? Those are completely different questions. One protects productivity. The other protects approval. Choose carefully. Every unnecessary meeting steals attention. The theft often goes unnoticed because it looks like responsibility. But busyness is not responsibility. Presence is not productivity. You have a choice. Now think about favors. Helping others is one of life's greatest gifts. But helping everyone all the time, regardless of the cost, is not kindness. It is unsustainable. Imagine trying to fill every empty cup around you while ignoring your own. Eventually, your cup becomes empty too. Then you have nothing left to give. The strongest people understand this. They protect themselves so they can continue serving what truly matters. That is wisdom, not selfishness. Suppose someone asks for another favor. You immediately say yes, not because you have time, because saying no feels uncomfortable. Hours later, you feel frustrated, not with them, with yourself. Why? Because deep down, you knew the answer should have been different. You ignored your own priorities. That frustration is information. Listen to it. Your emotions often reveal where your boundaries have disappeared. That's the key. Every unnecessary favor steals attention, not because helping is wrong, because attention follows commitment. The moment you agree, part of your mind begins carrying the responsibility, even before the task begins. Remember what we discussed about open loops. Every commitment remains alive inside your thoughts until it is completed. The more unnecessary commitments you collect, the less attention remains for meaningful work. Now think about conversations. Not every conversation deserves an hour. Some deserve 5 minutes. Some deserve none. There are conversations that inspire you, challenge you, teach you, strengthen you. Protect those. There are also conversations built entirely around gossip, complaints, drama, negativity, arguments with no intention of understanding. Hours disappear. Nothing improves. When the conversation ends, you feel mentally exhausted. Why? Because attention was spent without purpose. Energy was consumed without growth. You have a choice. Not every conversation requires your participation. Silence is often a wiser response than unnecessary discussion. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to defend every opinion. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't need their permission. The moment you realize this, freedom begins. Many people fear disappointing others. Few people fear disappointing themselves. That imbalance destroys dreams. Imagine spending 20 years saying yes to everyone, then waking one morning realizing you never said yes to your own calling. That is a tragedy. Approval cannot replace purpose. Never confuse being liked with being fulfilled. They are not the same. Some of the most focused people in history disappointed many people. Not because they were cruel, because they understood something important. Every meaningful mission requires sacrifice. Every important goal demands protected attention. Every protected attention requires boundaries. Every strong life is built on strong boundaries. Repeat that. Every strong life is built on strong boundaries. There is another misunderstanding worth addressing. People assume saying no closes doors. Very often, saying no opens the right ones. Every unnecessary commitment you decline creates room for meaningful work. Every unnecessary meeting you avoid creates another hour of deep thinking. Every unnecessary obligation you release creates energy for your family, your health, your dreams, your future. That empty space is not wasted, it is invested. No creates space, space to think, space to rest, space to create, space to become. Without space, growth becomes impossible. Imagine planting a tree inside a crowded room. No sunlight, no room for roots, no room for branches. Potential exists. Space does not. Your ambitions need space exactly the same way. Stop filling every hour simply because it is available. Leave room. Leave silence. Leave margin. Great lives are not built through constant occupation. They are built through intentional allocation. No creates space. Now let's make this practical. Before agreeing to anything, pause. Do not answer immediately. Ask yourself 4 questions. Does this move me toward the life I want? Will this require attention I cannot easily recover? Am I saying yes because I genuinely want to, or because I fear saying no? What important thing will receive less attention if I accept this? Those questions will protect you from countless unnecessary commitments. Not every opportunity is your opportunity. Not every emergency is your emergency. Not every request deserves your response. Remember that. It will save years of your life. You have a choice. Become someone who automatically says yes, or become someone who answers deliberately. Deliberate people protect their future. Reactive people surrender it. That's the key. Never forget the 3 principles of this chapter. No is protection. No creates space. Every strong life is built on strong boundaries. These are not merely phrases. They are habits. They are decisions. They are the invisible architecture of every focused life. When you learn to protect your attention from unnecessary obligations, something remarkable begins to happen. Focus stops feeling temporary. It becomes part of who you are. You no longer rely on motivation to avoid distractions. You become the kind of person who naturally guards your attention. And that transformation, from strategy to identity, is where we go next. Chapter 9. Become impossible to distract. Up to this point, we've talked about strategies, protecting your attention, removing distractions, creating better environments, building routines, learning to say no. All of these matter. But eventually, every strategy reaches a limit, because strategies can be forgotten. Motivation can disappear. Discipline can feel difficult. Identity lasts. That is why this chapter may be the most important in the entire audiobook. Real transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" That's the key. Most people build their lives around temporary motivation. They feel inspired after reading a book, watching a video, listening to a speech. For a few days, they wake up early, ignore distractions, work with intensity. Then ordinary life returns. The excitement fades. Old habits quietly reappear. Why? Because they changed their behavior, not their identity. Behavior without identity rarely survives. Identity changes behavior permanently. Imagine two different people. The first says, "I'm trying to quit wasting time." The second says, "I am someone who protects my attention." Those statements sound similar. They are completely different. The first person is fighting an old identity. The second has already chosen a new one. Identity changes the conversation inside your mind. When a distraction appears, you no longer ask, "Should I resist?" You simply think, "That isn't what someone like me does." The decision becomes automatic. That's the key. Think about someone who has never smoked. Offer them a cigarette. They rarely experience an internal battle. Why? Because smoking is not part of their identity. Now imagine someone trying to quit. The temptation feels different, not because the cigarette changed, because identity is still changing. Focus works the same way. As long as you see yourself as someone who is easily distracted, every interruption becomes a struggle. But once you become someone who guards attention, distraction feels out of place. Identity simplifies decisions. You have a choice. Stop chasing better habits. Start becoming a different person. Because the strongest habits grow naturally from the right identity. That's the key. How does identity change? Not through declarations, not through wishful thinking. Identity changes through repeated evidence. Every time you protect your first hour, you collect evidence. Every time you ignore an unnecessary notification, you collect evidence. Every time you finish one important task before switching, you collect evidence. Every time you say no to something that doesn't deserve your attention, you collect evidence. One decision changes very little. Thousands of decisions reshape identity. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can stay focused for one extraordinary day. The challenge is becoming the kind of person who naturally protects attention every ordinary day. Extraordinary lives are built through ordinary consistency, not occasional brilliance. Remember that. Many people overestimate what one day can accomplish. They underestimate what 1 year of consistency can create. Imagine placing one brick every day. One brick seems insignificant. Yet after several years, you've built an entire house. Identity grows the same way. One protected morning. One completed task. One intentional decision. Repeated long enough, they become the foundation of an entirely new life. That's the key. Let's talk about routines. People often think routines make life boring. The opposite is true. Strong routines make meaningful work easier. Imagine driving home after work. Many days you arrive without remembering every turn. Why? Because repetition allowed your brain to automate the process. Habits exist to reduce unnecessary thinking. That is one of the brain's greatest strengths. The problem is that many people automate the wrong behaviors. They automatically reach for the phone, automatically check notifications, automatically open social media, automatically procrastinate. Automatic behavior is not the enemy. Poorly designed automatic behavior is. Your goal is not to eliminate habits. Your goal is to choose them. Daily routines become powerful because they remove negotiation. There is no daily debate. There is no constant questioning. You simply act. Wake up. Drink water. Avoid your phone. Begin deep work. Exercise. Read. Reflect. Sleep consistently. The fewer decisions you make about these actions, the more mental energy remains for meaningful problems. That's why disciplined people often appear calm. Not because life is easier for them, because they aren't exhausting themselves making the same decisions every morning. Discipline removes decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is invisible, yet it influences nearly everything. Imagine beginning your day by making dozens of tiny decisions. Should I get up now? Should I check my phone? What should I eat? Should I exercise? Should I answer emails first? Should I start working now? Each decision seems small. Together, they drain attention. Eventually, when an important decision arrives, your mind feels tired. Not because the decision is difficult, because your energy has already been spent. Now imagine another person. They wake at the same time. Their morning is already decided. Their first hour is protected. Their phone stays away. Their workspace is prepared. Their routine guides them. They don't waste energy deciding. They invest energy creating. Discipline removes decision fatigue. That's why routines create freedom, not limitation. Freedom. Many people believe freedom means having unlimited choices. True freedom comes from eliminating unnecessary choices. That's the key. There is another important habit shared by focused people. They create rituals. A routine tells you when to work. A ritual tells your brain that deep focus is about to begin. Perhaps you always sit in the same chair. Open the same notebook. Take one deep breath. Read your goals. Begin with 5 minutes of complete silence. These actions seem small, yet they become powerful signals. Your brain recognizes the pattern. We are entering deep work now. Elite athletes perform rituals before competition. Musicians perform rituals before concerts. Surgeons perform rituals before operations. These rituals are not superstition. They are preparation. Preparation creates consistency. Consistency creates excellence. Now imagine repeating your focus ritual every single day. After weeks, your brain begins associating those actions with concentration. Eventually, focus arrives more quickly. Not because you forced it, because you trained it. That is the quiet power of ritual. Remember something important. The goal is not becoming someone who never feels distracted. The goal is becoming someone who quickly returns to focus. Even disciplined people experience temptation. The difference is what happens next. Average people follow the distraction. Focused people notice it, then return, again, and again, and again. Each return strengthens identity. Never confuse perfection with mastery. Mastery is not never wandering. Mastery is always returning. You have a choice. Every distraction becomes another opportunity to practice returning. That practice compounds. Soon, something remarkable happens. Focus stops feeling difficult. It starts feeling natural. That is when identity has changed. Now let's speak your new identity aloud. Not because repeating words magically changes reality, because words shape attention. Attention shapes action. Action shapes identity. Say these sentences slowly. Believe them because you are proving them through your behavior. I guard my attention. I do not give it away carelessly. I protect it because it shapes my future. I choose my focus. The world does not decide what deserves my mind. I decide. Every day, every hour, every moment. I control my life. Not because I control everything that happens, because I control where my attention goes, and where attention goes, life follows. Repeat those words often, especially when temptation appears, especially when distraction calls your name, especially when the world demands your attention. Identity is built through repetition, just as distraction was built through repetition. Now your new identity is taking its place. You're no longer someone constantly searching for focus. You're becoming someone who naturally protects it. That is the transformation this entire audiobook has been leading toward. Not better productivity, a better identity. Never forget these truths. I guard my attention. I choose my focus. I control my life. Carry them into every decision. Carry them into every morning. Carry them into every challenge. Because once protecting your attention becomes part of who you are, your life begins changing almost automatically. The final chapter brings everything together into one complete philosophy, a way of living where every focused day compounds into a focused future. This is where everything you've learned becomes one unshakable identity. Chapter 10. Reclaim your life. One focused. Day at a time, you have reached the final chapter, but this is not the end. It is the beginning. Everything you've heard throughout this audiobook points toward one simple truth. Your life changes whenever your attention changes. Not when your circumstances change. Not when your income changes. Not when someone finally believes in you. Your life begins changing the moment you deliberately choose where your attention will go. That is the foundation. That is the philosophy. That is the invisible force behind every meaningful transformation. Because your attention is not simply something you possess. It is something you become. Every thought you repeatedly entertain, every habit you repeatedly strengthen, every distraction you repeatedly accept, every priority you repeatedly protect, each one quietly shapes the person you will become tomorrow. That is why attention is never neutral. It is always creating something. The only question is whether it is creating the life you want, or the life you accidentally drift into. Attention creates destiny. Those 3 words summarize everything in this audiobook. Remember them. Live by them. Return to them whenever the world becomes noisy. Throughout these chapters, you've learned that attention is your most valuable asset. You've discovered that distractions never merely steal minutes. They steal momentum. They steal clarity. They steal opportunities that may never return. You've learned that constant stimulation trains your brain to become restless. That silence rebuilds attention. That successful people eliminate more than they accumulate. That finishing one important task creates confidence stronger than beginning 10. That your environment quietly shapes your behavior long before you make a conscious decision. That deep work creates extraordinary results because extraordinary results require extraordinary attention. That saying no is not selfish. It is protection. And finally, you've learned that lasting focus is not simply a habit. It is an identity. Each lesson stands alone. Together, they become a way of living. That's the key. Many people spend years searching for the secret to success. They imagine there is one book, one course, one mentor, one breakthrough moment, one perfect morning, one magical strategy that changes everything overnight. Life rarely works that way. Transformation almost never arrives dramatically. It arrives quietly. One decision, repeated daily. Imagine placing one drop of water into a bucket. Nothing appears to change. Another drop. Still nothing. Hundreds more. Eventually, the bucket begins filling. Enough drops later, the bucket overflows. Focus compounds exactly the same way. One protected morning may not change your life. One uninterrupted hour may not change your career. One day without unnecessary distractions may not transform your future. But hundreds of focused mornings will. Hundreds of uninterrupted hours will. Hundreds of intentional days absolutely will. Small decisions become large outcomes, not because they are individually powerful, because they are relentlessly repeated. Every focused day compounds into a focused future. That is the mathematics of personal transformation. Most people underestimate compounding because they expect immediate rewards. When they don't see dramatic progress after 1 week, they return to old habits. They mistake invisible progress for no progress. But roots grow long before trees. Foundations are built before skyscrapers. Character develops before success becomes visible. Trust the process. Trust repetition. Trust consistency. You have a choice. Keep chasing quick results, or become someone who values lasting change. Only one path creates a meaningful life. Now let's talk about motivation. For too long, people have been told to wait until they feel inspired. Wait until the mood is right. Wait until energy arrives. Wait until life becomes easier. That advice has delayed more dreams than failure ever has. Motivation is a wonderful visitor. It is a terrible leader. Some mornings you will feel motivated. Many mornings you will not. If your focus depends on emotion, your progress will always be unpredictable. Disciplined people understand something different. They remove emotion from the decision. They don't ask, "Do I feel like protecting my attention today?" They simply do it, because it is who they are. That is freedom. The greatest freedom is not doing whatever you feel. The greatest freedom is no longer being controlled by how you feel. Focus is built through repeated daily protection, not occasional inspiration. Repeat that until it becomes part of your thinking. Focus is built through repeated daily protection, not occasional inspiration. Every morning presents the same question. What deserves my attention today? Answer that question intentionally. Every afternoon presents another question. What is stealing my attention right now? Answer that honestly. Every evening presents one final question. Did I protect my attention better than yesterday? Answer that without excuses. This is how transformation happens. Not through grand promises, through daily reflection, through honest correction, through consistent action. Some days you will fail. You will become distracted. You will lose momentum. You will waste time. That is part of being human. Do not confuse one distracted day with a distracted identity. Return immediately. Do not wait until Monday. Do not wait until next month. Do not wait until New Year's Day. Return with the very next decision. One decision never defines you. Repeated decisions do. That's the key. There will always be another notification, another trend, another argument, another breaking headline, another opportunity to abandon what matters. The world will continue competing for your attention. That will never stop. Your responsibility is not controlling the world. Your responsibility is controlling your response. Remember something important. You are not protecting your attention because attention itself is valuable. You are protecting it because your life is valuable. Attention is simply the doorway. Your future waits on the other side. Think about who you could become after 1 year of deliberate focus. Imagine reading instead of scrolling. Creating instead of consuming. Listening instead of reacting. Building instead of comparing. Finishing instead of abandoning. Protecting instead of surrendering. That person is not imaginary. That person is built one focused day at a time. Every focused day compounds into a focused future. One day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 month. 1 month becomes 1 year. 1 year becomes an entirely different identity, and identity becomes destiny. Now imagine the opposite. Another year of constant interruptions. Another year of unfinished goals. Another year of reacting instead of creating. Another year of allowing algorithms, notifications, and other people's priorities to determine your days. That future compounds too. Whether you choose intentionally or accidentally, something is always growing. That is why your attention deserves protection every single day. Not because today is extraordinary. Because ordinary days create extraordinary lives. Remember the image from the beginning of this audiobook. Attention is sunlight. Whatever receives it grows. If distraction receives your attention, distraction grows. If discipline receives your attention, discipline grows. If fear receives your attention, fear grows. If purpose receives your attention, purpose grows. Every day you are watering something. Choose wisely. You have a choice. Always. Never say you have no control. You may not control the economy. You may not control other people. You may not control unexpected events, but you can always control what deserves your next moment of attention. And that single choice, repeated thousands of times, quietly shapes your entire existence. That is more power than most people ever realize. Carry these principles with you, not for a week, not until motivation fades, for life. Let them become your operating system, your filter, your compass. Whenever life becomes noisy, return to these simple truths. Protect your attention, because what you protect becomes stronger. Eliminate distraction, because what you remove creates room for what matters. Reclaim your future, because your future has never been something waiting for you. It is something you build through today's attention. And above all, never forget the sentence that ties every lesson together. Attention creates destiny. Say it when you wake up. Say it before beginning your work. Say it when temptation appears. Say it whenever you forget what truly matters. Attention creates destiny. Attention creates destiny. Attention creates destiny. Because the quality of your attention determines the quality of your actions. The quality of your actions determines the quality of your habits. The quality of your habits determines the quality of your character. And the quality of your character determines the quality of your life. This audiobook is now complete. The lessons are yours. The understanding is yours. The choice is yours. Starting today, become the guardian of your own attention. Become the architect of your own focus. Become the author of your own future. One decision, 1 hour, 1 day, at a time. Protect your attention. Eliminate distraction. Reclaim your future. Because in the end, there is one truth that outlasts every trend, every technology, every interruption, and every excuse. Attention creates destiny. This is your choice. Every single day, the world will ask for your attention. It will tempt you with noise, urgency, entertainment, comparison, and endless distraction. But remember this. Every time you give away your attention without intention, you give away a piece of your future. Focus is not a talent. It is not luck. It is a decision repeated every day. Protect your mornings. Protect your mind. Protect your priorities. Eliminate what weakens you. Build what strengthens you. One focused hour becomes one focused day. One focused day becomes one focused year. And one focused year becomes an entirely different life. Starting today, stop asking whether you have enough time. Ask whether you're protecting the attention you already have. Your challenge begins now. Before you move on to anything else, eliminate one distraction that has been stealing your future. Then do it again, tomorrow, and the day after that. Because your attention creates your destiny, and no one will protect it for you.